You've heard of the deep state. Now, get ready for the deep church. Hi, my name is Lindsay Rexan, and if you are new here, welcome. If you are a returning watcher, welcome back. I hope you see something today that has blessed you. I want to let you all know that I have been working diligently and tirelessly on this video. I've been working on this video throughout the week and working to improve my skills as a creator. So please let me know what you think. And without any further ado, we are going to get into this. You might have heard truthers claim that the times that we are living in are biblical. Genesis 15:20 states, "As for you, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good, in order to bring about this present outcome, that many people would be kept alive as they are this day." Joseph said these iconic words to his brothers after they finally recognized him after having been estranged for 2 decades. For those who either don't know or need a refresher, Joseph was the 11th of 12 sons born to Jacob. He was favored by his father and by God, much to his brothers' chagrin. After sharing a prophetic dream in which his brothers and fathers were bowing down to Joseph, his brothers plotted to kill him. When this failed because Reuben, one of his brothers, had mercy on him, Joseph was thrown into a pit and then sold into slavery. Not too long after, he was taken to Egypt and he was sold to Potiphar. God gave Joseph favor with the man, but the favor that Potiphar's wife began to try to show Joseph was not from God. After basically throwing herself at him and he refused her, Potiphar's wife cried "grape," and he was thrown into prison. Which, by the way, if you are a woman who does this sort of thing to an innocent man, you deserve prison. Back to the ranch. While in prison, Joseph correctly interprets the dreams of two of his inmates, one of whom goes back to service for Pharaoh, but not before Joseph asks him to mention him to the Pharaoh, which he forgets for 2 years. And then one night, Pharaoh has a dream which no one can interpret. Then the cupbearer remembers, "Hey, I know a guy." So then, not only is Joseph freed, but he is promoted to second in command of all of Egypt. A famine hits the land, and then, just like his dreams so long ago, Joseph's father and brothers seek relief in Egypt from none other than Joseph. God restores the relationship with Joseph and his brothers, and that is when he says the iconic line, "As for you, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good, so that many might be saved." I can almost hear Charlie Kirk from heaven making the same resounding claim to those responsible for his assassination. This is made evident by how popular his good friend and former colleague Candace Owens has become, despite the desperate smear campaign designed to silence and discredit her. No one has pushed harder for the truth of what really happened that day more than Candace Owens. She has debunked the coordinated attacks by legacy media as well as influencers and pastors by bringing receipts. Candace has come up with a much more realistic timeline of that ill-fated day, as well as the days leading up to it, and she has on more than one occasion produced text messages that Charlie was a part of that have caused panic amongst the powers that be. I mean, let's face it, guys. Candace Owens was popular before, but now, because of her refusal to accept the deep state narrative, she has the #1 podcast in the entire world. As time goes by, it is becoming crystal clear that despite the firestorm against her dished out by pastors, Christian leaders, and influencers with a platform, God Himself is lifting up Candace Owens. God is exposing the deep church, and today we are going to look at several video clips that paint a picture that I believe will show you just how biblical the times that we are living in are.
Kind of sort of reminds me of what happened to Charlie. All right, this is kind of where this is going. Turning Point Faith, everywhere that I'm investigating, Turning Point Faith keeps coming up. These characters keep coming up, and there's a pattern that I'm noticing that a lot of these mainstream pastors and preachers actually come from high-ranking military families. High-ranking military families that have been around for a long time, ties to the Navy, ties to the Air Force. Frank Turek, Air Force, Rob McCoy, we discussed about his background, his naval background, psychological operations. They're literally named like a fleet of ships after his father. Like there was like the McCoy Naval something. Lance Wallnau, he's no different. He graduated from a military academy. His father, Carl Wallnau, was a major in the United States Air Force. Okay, Wallnau served under General Patton. After the war, he then continued his adventures as a field engineer for Standard Oil. Okay, building high-pressure liquid propane installations throughout political revolutions in the world. So he would go and do that in Haiti and Cuba, Dominican Republic, places that I would argue
when we're in it to be right,
cause a lot of drama in. I'm just saying. So Lance fits the pattern.
That first clip was taken from Melissa Redpill. I highly recommend her, especially if you are a believer. She does an excellent job of seeing the forest through the trees and connecting dots that you wouldn't even think of in a way that's not only digestible, but also very relatable. She has a YouTube channel, and you can also find her on X under the same handle. Give her a follow.
You cannot question Israel at all, or they descend on you. Somehow, the Charlie Kirk assassination is bringing together every single last one of these themes that we have been exploring. So, where did we leave off yesterday? Well, we spoke about the Cavalry Chapel. We spoke about Rob McCoy being the lead pastor in Thousand Oaks, one of their many churches across the United States. And my sense, which every Christian Zionist influencer under the sun is trying to ward me off of. Oh, how dare she? I can't even believe it. Bibi can blow up thousands and tens of thousands of kids, but Candace investigating the Charlie Kirk assassination is crazy. It's unbiblical. It only furthered my sense that faith had somehow been infiltrated. Faith had become a military operation, or perhaps from the 60s onward, that's what it's always been, right? Too many instances, as I showed you yesterday, of trafficking and sexual abuse. You have to begin asking the question whether or not this is systemic and it's on purpose, and who these pastors are working for.
Someone who will be mentioned several times within this video is a man named Rob McCoy. Allow me to give you an introduction to the man who fancies himself the spiritual father of the Turning Point Empire. Born in 1964 in Coronado, California, son of a Navy officer dad and a diehard Republican mom, he grew up swimming and water poloing his way through a classic all-American conservative playbook. Got his history degree from Fresno State, seminary from some Mennonite spot up there, and then ditched a cushy corporate gig at Unilever to play pastor. He was ordained in 1995, and he's been running Godspeak Calvary Chapel in Thousand Oaks for over 2 decades. Until this summer, when he conveniently stepped down as senior pastor and handed the reins to some underling named Micah Stevens. Why now? We'll get to that. Rob's the guy who supposedly mentored Charlie. Co-founded TPUSA Faith with him after some Liberty University drama, which I want to add here that by the end of this video, you will see a pattern with Pastor Rob McCoy and drama. Anyway, so they've taken TPUSA Faith and turned it into this evangelical arm for getting pastors riled up about politics. McCoy defied COVID lockdowns like a champ. Good for him, I guess. The church should always be essential, right? I mean, really, it should. He served as a chaplain for the Ventura County Sheriff's Office and sits on some pregnancy center board. He's been married to his wife, Michelle, for 35 years. He's got 5 kids and 7 grandkids. On paper, he is a solid Christian soldier. But if you peel back the layers, you see a man who's awfully quick to rewrite history when it suits the narrative. At Charlie's memorial, that spectacle in Glendale, where they turned a funeral into a MAGA revival tent, Rob gets up there preaching about Charlie's sinless life and how he packed multiple lifetimes into 31 years, which you can't really argue with him on that. I mean, the sinless life, yeah, but I would say that I can agree with him on the fact that it seems like Charlie lived multiple lifetimes in only 31 years. So, the man's emotional, sure, but then he starts spinning tales about his son Mikey being covered in blood after the shooting, like some biblical martyr scene. The footage shows that Mikey's pristine. There's not a drop. And remember that group text I mentioned a little while ago? In that group text, Charlie straight up said he was done with the pro-Israel lobby, pulling TPUSA back from the brink of what he called Zionist overreach. Rob was in that chat, and he saw it. But when Candace brought it up, crickets, then denial. Why lie about something so verifiable? Because the truth might unravel the whole unwavering faith warrior myth they've built around themselves. Now, let's meet Mikey McCoy, the golden boy, the one they parade around as Charlie's right-hand man. He's a young buck, born and bred in LA, Oaks Christian School grad. He skipped college altogether because at 18, Daddy Rob hooks him up with the ultimate nepotism gig, driving Charlie Kirk to the airport after a church event in 2020. Picture this. Charlie's grilling the kid on Plato and American history the whole ride, skips the pleasantries, and boom, don't go to college, come work for me. Just like that, Mikey's in. Fast forward, he's chief of staff at TPUSA, living in Scottsdale, married to some PR director named Elizabeth since 2022. Close advisor, inner circle, the works. But here's where things began to turn radioactive. September the 10th, that ill-fated day, 2025, Utah Valley University. Charlie's on stage, railing against the establishment as per usual, when the shot heard around the world. Shooter Tyler Robinson, 22, supposedly nails him in the neck. The official story, Lone Wolf had enough of his hatred per the texts. But rewind the video. The shot rings out, chaos erupts, people scattering, screaming, and Mikey? He's strolling, calm as a cucumber, phone to his ear milliseconds later, walking away from Charlie, not toward him. Not rushing to help, not covered in blood like Daddy Rob claims. And let's not forget legacy media's push to make him seem like some sort of a hero for making phone calls. And those calls, before the shot even echoes, who was on the other end, Mikey? A heads up? Damage control? Then summer 25 rolls around. Rob retires from the pulpit, sells his San Diego pad. The whole family packs up for Arizona, right as TPUSA's headquarters. Coincidence? Or positioning for what's next? It would seem to me that the McCoys aren't just bystanders. They're woven into this a little too tightly. Rob's fiery defenses, Mikey's eerie poise. It's definitely not adding up. Charlie was shifting, questioning the sacred cows, and suddenly he's silenced? With his trusted pastor and chief of staff at the epicenter? No, sir. No, ma'am. This isn't grief talking. This is pattern recognition. Candace brought the texts, the footage, the timelines. The movement's been infiltrated. And if we don't call it out, we are all accessories. So who's Rob and Mikey McCoy? To the faithful, heroes. To me, question marks with megachurch smiles. Pray on that, darlings, and keep watching, because we're just getting started. Another figure that seems closely associated with the deep church, at the center of every celebrity who's ever had the misfortune of working with her as a manager, is a character named Lou Taylor. I will let Candace and Brett Cooper explain. And it might seem like the celebrity talk is going off on a tangent, but it's a small world after all.
Then I get an email yesterday, which made me perk up. A flurry of emails, actually. Thank you, guys. Telling me to stay the course because the Calvary Chapel was also involved in Britney Spears' conservatorship. What?
Now, somehow, no one really knows, I mean, this is not documented at all, she was brought into the fold of this family by their father, Jamie. This is Jamie Sr. And by 2008, so less than a year later, Lou was going on TV shows as the family's spokesperson to speak on behalf of Britney.
Lou Taylor is the business manager for Britney Spears' father, mother, and younger sister, Jamie Lynn. Lou, good morning to you.
Here you have Britney that needs to have some security somewhere, that every single thing she does and every single person she has a relationship with doesn't become an opportunity to be exploited. I mean, when do you ever rest in that if you're constantly in fear of being exploited? Every day, Jamie goes to work as a professional chef, asking the Lord to give him the strength to honor the people he works for in the midst of circumstances. That Lynn Spears is a mother that is brokenhearted just because she's apart from her daughter, that she loves her daughter so much, and again, asking every day for God to give her strength and for her to continue to have hope.
And her mom stated in her memoir, Through the Storm, that Lou and Britney's father had discussed putting her in a conservatorship shortly after that happened. So this was all around 2008. But the missing piece here, and guys, this is what shocked me, is that Jamie Sr. had around this time allegedly filed for bankruptcy. He had done this multiple times. And Lou Taylor's firm gave Britney's dad a loan of $40,000. Now, we don't know why, but he had just filed for bankruptcy, and this woman gave him $40,000. Now, within months of this loan, the conservatorship of Britney Spears was implemented. This was in February of 2008. But Lou and her father, even though Britney was apparently not able to function, she needed to be under this conservatorship, they kept her career going. Let's listen to this. Only months after arguing that his daughter was incapacitated and therefore needed to be under his control, Mr. Spears committed her to an 8-month tour named Circus. TriStar, that is Lou Taylor's company, was hired to serve as the tour's business manager, handling its finances and accounting, and the tour grossed an estimated $130 million. Money that was now under the control of Lou Taylor and Jamie Spears, the father.
So she was mentally ill, but not mentally ill enough to prevent her from making them more money and allowing them to control their money. So what we're describing here is effectively an infiltration. And instantly, Lou Taylor talking about God and prayers, that's a lot of what you start to see. And then when you look beneath that layer, you start to go, okay, you start to ask questions, then suddenly the God people get upset. Okay, what she's describing there is effectively an infiltration, but it's going to get crazier. And I want you to hold on to that idea of an infiltration, because also yesterday, after I covered Rob McCoy's Potter's Field scandal, the one that happened up in Montana, where I described to you an organization, a faith-based organization, and I told you that then suddenly people were wondering what's happening with the finances, didn't know where the money was going. Rob McCoy steps in as the CFO, and there's articles about it, and essentially this organization sort of disappears overnight. Well, someone who was involved intimately with this scandal messaged me and said, Candace, no, you have it completely wrong because you're reading what's in the press. The Potter's Field scandal, Potter's Field was actually a healthy, functional organization. This was actually Christian ministry until, and again, I'm going to say this is alleged, but I'm looking further into this claim, until Rob McCoy got involved, and then he intentionally scandalized it and staged an effective hostile takeover with a few other board members. That's what this person is alleging, and they've sent emails and some backup proof, which we need to go through before we can present that as a fact. But it piqued my interest, the idea of a hostile takeover designed as faith-based almost, right? Like we're doing the right thing here and we're trying to help. Let's stay the course with this idea of companies, people, and organizations being taken over via scandals, because the people who seem to get involved don't exactly have the qualifications to be in the C-suite or to be the heads of companies at all. And as Brett Cooper is about to lay out, Lou Taylor's qualifications are somewhat lacking. Take it away again, Brett Cooper.
Now, another thing that I think is important to understand about Lou Taylor is that Lou is not a talent manager. She's not here to just oversee brands or help deals be made. She's not like an agent or that kind of thing. She was playing the role of business manager, which is a financial role. Even though Lou Taylor had no financial background, she was not even an accountant. And most business managers, my business manager, is an accountant. Lou Taylor actually started her career in a church working alongside her husband, who at the time was a pastor at Calvary Church in Brentwood, California. And interestingly enough, according to financial documents that are in the public domain, Jamie Sr. was giving 10% of his income that he was making off of Britney Spears from the conservatorship to the church where Lou Taylor's husband was a pastor. Read this. Mr. Spears at times gave 10% of his conservatorship income to the Taylor's Calvary Chapel, Brentwood, a practice known as tithing, according to a 2010 financial document. Mr. Spears gave tens of thousands of dollars in 1 year alone to the church, which is about 500 miles away from where he lives in Louisiana. Now, obviously, since then, all of this information has come out, and Britney has now accused Lou of playing a major role in her exploitation, and even though Lou denies all of this and continues to deny everything, through emails obtained through Britney's trials, it is clear that in some way, Lou was involved. This is from the LA Times. Britney Spears' lawyer, emails show ex-business manager helped set up conservatorship. And in recent years, Britney has even gone so far as to accuse her father and Lou of allegedly having an affair and unlawfully using her money to fund trips of their own. This headline from Daily Mail reads, Britney Spears accuses dad Jamie of having an affair with her ex-business manager Lou Taylor and claims he charged her estate for the pair's trip to the Holy Land to get baptized. And guys, this is not Lou's only controversy. She is not just wrapped up in the Britney Spears world. Just a couple of years ago, The New Yorker reported that she also tried to place Courtney Love and Lindsay Lohan into conservatorships.
Oh, we're going to get there, because as I started following the Calvary Church again, suddenly involved, and that part that she's mentioning about the tithing, since I put onto my Instagram stories that, what is this? You're telling me that this woman, Lou Taylor, also was involved in the Calvary Church, and I was not paying attention to anything that was going on with Britney Spears at all. And I've arrived at this same conclusion that there's some sort of an infiltration that seems to be happening with Calvary Chapels. And here's where we are. That's ridiculous. This can't be a coincidence. There can't be this many people that are having this experience and have this much scandal involving this church. This doesn't make sense to me. Well, I put this up on my stories this morning, and 2 other people reached out to me who worked with Lou Taylor and described exactly what she's referring to, this system of tithing that Lou Taylor makes them say 10% has to go to the church if they want to be blessed. I'm not kidding. 10% has to go to the church if they want God to bless them. This is why they should do this. And then also directing them to invest in other companies without necessarily revealing that they're involved in those other companies and that God will bless them and they'll pray over them. What is happening? How can there be this many Calvary Chapel scandals and stories? She also mentioned Lindsay Lohan. She's not lying there. Well-loved teenager, fantastic actress who didn't love Parent Trap when they were growing up and then somehow became addicted to drugs. Suddenly, her dad, Michael Lohan, you might not remember this, but he got in front of a mic speaking to the press and called out Lou Taylor. Take a listen.
When Lindsay was supposed to go into Morningstar Rehab, they started to reconstruct everything there for Lindsay to accommodate her. Sean Chapman Holly, Sean and Lou Taylor leaked that to the press because they wanted Lindsay to get out sooner and have her in UCLA so she wouldn't spend much time in a rehab. They're destroying my daughter's life. I'm praying that Dina finally gets on the same page with me and does something about this.
A button was pressed in America and big psychological operations started to take place. And now, of course, we learn that this church that Lou Taylor's husband is a pastor at has this background that involves the CIA. They even explicitly tell the true story about all these hippies. Well, the hippie movement was not organic. It was not real. It was a psychological operation. That is a fact, okay? That is not a crazy musing. It is simply a fact that they brought this, and this really became a way to ultimately attack the Christian faith, to divide the Christian faith. The story goes these hippies decided to, give a fresh update to the Christian church. But then it turns out that a lot of these people that are heading these churches have military ties, high up familial military ties. And I find all of this to be fascinating. And it has only made me focus more on this faith angle of TPUSA, because I am telling you that when that individual was at his memorial, I hadn't even processed it because I was so in the grief stage. Right. When they said that, something in me woke up where they said it was just so strange that everything was about faith, but like Turning Point USA was originally free markets and capitalism. And I remember you and Charlie running around and I went, yeah, that shifted pretty quickly. And this is where we need to look. And the stuff that I'm learning about Rob McCoy and the fact that people that are supposed to be biblical are telling us not to do that, and it's completely crazy. And Rob McCoy's up here trying to, I guess you could say, like launder the reputation of somebody who spent years in prison for abusing children. What is happening here? Something is not right, and this is only the beginning. I'm going to put this out there because I think a lot of people now need to start paying attention to the Calvary Chapel in whatever regard you're researching, whether it's Justin Bieber, as I just mentioned, whether you're looking into the Courtney Love thing, or whether you are focused on the Britney Spears thing. You need to look here. We need to understand what is happening inside of these churches. And I am definitively not letting go, obviously, of this TPUSA faith infiltration, which is what it looks like to me. Do we have the email somebody sent me? And guys, just, I blacked out a ton of this email because it's way too identifying. And this sounds like a very scary syndicate, in my opinion, so I don't want to put anybody at risk. But somebody who very much knew Lou Taylor, worked with Lou Taylor, sent me this, which is interesting. Again, the whole top is blacked out. It says, I have since come to think that Rob and Lou Taylor's church is just a front for them and a ruse. I actually have many suspicions about at least Lou being tied to possibly the CIA and Mossad. All of the security that was hired under the name of, she's writing black box, she means black cube security. That was also the security that was provided for Harvey Weinstein, it's really just the Mossad agents who now are mostly with the Kardashians. Now, we're going to talk about Ye in a bit. I did go to Israel with Rob Taylor and a few other people from our church in blank and know that they have many ties there. I've also heard that Lou has connections and ties to Ghislaine Maxwell and Epstein, etc. I'm going to say all of this is allegedly. Obviously, this is an email tip. I have not confirmed any of that. The reporter's trying to connect some of the dots, and they told me that the house that Britney was being held out in 2019 was tied to Epstein somehow via Tony Blair. Britney Spears lives in Thousand Oaks, California, as does Justin Bieber, I believe, and Diddy, I believe, has a house there as well. I know Lou Taylor built a house there and would find it very hard to believe that she does not know Rob McCoy, seeing that he was the mayor of Thousand Oaks and is the pastor of the large Calvary Chapel church there. Before Robin, Lou Taylor moved to Brentwood, Tennessee. I think Robin and Lou Taylor moved to Brentwood, Tennessee. They lived in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and attended a very large Calvary Chapel church there. And they were mentored by a man named Bob Coy. We brought him up yesterday, the pedophile scandal that we mentioned yesterday, who has since been broiled in scandal for sexual allegations and I believe had to step down. He mentored them in the process of starting their church in Brentwood, Tennessee. That's interesting. It would be foolish for us to think that Lou Taylor does not know Rob McCoy. She's exactly right. All these people live in Thousand Oaks, California, and he's been pastoring that church up until July of this year for a very long time.
Now, this is, you might not have been watching some of these things with Candace Owens, but I'm telling you, she is being slammed right, left, and center. That tells me right there that she is onto something huge, and they are doing everything to shut her down. There are a lot of people online who are talking about a lot of different things, but it's like they've called in everybody to attack Candace Owens. So on this little clip that I want you to hear is that she has found a very interesting connection. And so what she's boiling down to is that a lot of these pastors are former military people, and that they are involved in something very, very strange, and that they are definitely attacking her and supporting the Zionist cause. And so I want you to hear this because it points to what happened. But remember the Las Vegas massacre? Like 58 people were shot and killed, and it just was buried in the news. Nothing ever came of it. She's found another very strange connection, and about someone who was at the Las Vegas massacre. They lived through that, and then they died mysteriously at another shooting, very strange, that no one even heard about, and they're connected to this, quote, pastor, Rob McCoy. Check this out.
Shooting happened. Largest mass shooting in American history. And it was almost instantly covered up. 58 people were murdered. More than 600 others were injured. And they told us that it was just a lone shooter, Stephen Pettick, some crazy guy who acted alone. Conspiracy theorists said it was a military operation, and there was a ton of evidence to support that, okay? Fast forward a year later, on November 7th of 2018, and there's almost this like Las Vegas shooting hangover that happens in Thousand Oaks, California. Oddly, about 40 people who were at the Las Vegas shooting were all at the Borderline bar one night when a Marine, whose family knows Rob McCoy, well, Rob McCoy is friends with that Marine, that Marine's mother decides to storm into a bar and conduct a mass shooting. And a victim of that bar shooting was a 27-year-old Navy veteran who had survived the Las Vegas shooting. So it just makes me wonder, was he a victim or was he a target, right? We have to start asking these questions. This is a headline from the BBC regarding the Las Vegas shooting, the Thousand Oaks shooting at the Borderline Bar and Grill. The Las Vegas shooting survivor being among the dead. We're not getting answers to any of these questions, and they're telling everybody that these are just conspiracies. It's always a conspiracy when you start questioning these fed narratives. One survivor said that the group of them were meeting up for a second time in about a year, having, I guess, like a little Las Vegas reunion, and that's why they were all there. The point being is, following this, a month after this, Rob McCoy then gets elected mayor of Thousand Oaks. He's mayor for a year. And I'm just starting to ask a lot of questions about what is happening here, who is funding these groups, who is funding these pastors, who is funding these churches. We're getting a lot of weird stories about these churches that are coming out. I shared something over the weekend about Romanian sex trafficking on my X feed that is involving one of these churches, one of these big churches out in California. And I'm saying it's time to start prodding the narrative, because I'm thinking that perhaps faith has been hijacked. And like I said, and we are going to have some explosive stuff for you on Wednesday that we have discovered about this Charlie case. The faith element is compelling, and I am not convinced that these people that stand on stages and tell you to stop following Tucker Carlson are working on behalf of the Lord, okay? I don't think that that's the case. I think these people that are telling you that you are not allowed to question Israel or you're going to go to hell are not working on behalf of God. I think that they worship specific people with military ties. In fact, they are just following orders. But there's a picture here that's emerging that we should not ignore.
I really appreciate her bringing this out, because the deep state has been exposed for years, but the deep church really has not, and it's really been because of the Charlie incident. And that's what I posted today when I posted this. The Charlie incident, I called it. This is going to expose the deep church, and that these pastors are controlled. that they speak only what they are told to speak. This is what is being exposed before all the world. We have to know that these people are not who they purport themselves to be. As she said, I do not believe that they are working on behalf of the Lord. So this is one of these pastors, Pastor Mark Driscoll, and there was something, and I didn't pull it up to share with you on this video, but something about that he was involved in something, and I'm sorry I can't remember what it was, but I will post it on the social media, and so you can, you'll see that on my feed. But here's what he is saying, that she needs help. He's talking like a pastor. Oh, I'm her pastor, and I think, as not that he's her pastor, but as a pastor, I feel that she needs help, and she, and he even says, oh, that, her husband, she needs to get, do whatever her husband says. Basically, her husband needs to get her in check. I'm telling you, this is not a good look, because she is trying to get to the bottom of, in my strong opinion, she's trying to, if you listen to it, you can see very clearly that she's trying to get to the bottom of what is going on. There were people caught in lies. Why are they lying? Why are they promoting for Tyler Robinson to be prosecuted? And my opinion is that Kash Patel is giving them enough rope to hang themselves, because they're exposing that they are trying to push a patsy on the world. And if they really loved Charlie, like clearly Candace does, then they would be wanting to know who was the true killer. And if they're pushing a patsy, that makes you think, what are you involved in? It really makes you suspicious. And how is Israel involved and all that? So she's connecting a lot of these dots. And when people come out like this, and in mass, not just one person, but a lot of different pastors, it makes you wonder. Okay, check this out.
She's lost touch with reality. Honestly, from a pastoral perspective, I feel sorry for her. I pray for her. If she has a husband who is present, or she's got a pastor who cares, she needs to get an evaluation. And honestly, she needs to take a break, because she's become obsessed with Charlie Kirk in a way that is really unhealthy for a married woman. And also, she's tried to make herself the de facto defender and spokesperson for the legacy of Charlie Kirk. And that is the sole discretion of his wife, Erica, who did an incredible job on her interview this week. And she's a really remarkable, incredible, grieving widow. This is the problem with the internet, is the crazier you are, the more attention you get, but the less helpful you are. She's lost.
Okay, there's so much wrong with that. It's really hard to know where to start. But this whole idea that he's concerned about her, I'm not buying any of that. And then he's saying that, she needs to talk to her husband, and that she's not the one who really needs to be concerned about getting the truth out about Charlie. It's for all of us. I didn't know Charlie. I didn't know him. But it is in my interest and your interest to get to the truth of what happened with Charlie. And I believe this is exposing the FBI investigations and how they've been run since JFK and before. I believe it's exposing the deep church. It's exposing how they do hostile takeovers, whoever this is, as far as like the powers that be, do these hostile takeovers. All of this is being exposed. This whole thing is part of the exposure, and they are all proving themselves to be in on it, one after another after another. And so she's naming names. She's talking about various different, she brought up Lance Waldau. I mean, she's bringing up so many of these who are sounds like mouthpieces. Okay, so I want you to see that. And then, let's see, here was one that says, in May of this year, a billionaire paid out a large sum of money to pastors to push anti-Candace and anti-Tucker propaganda to their churches. This is what people need to know. This is a big problem. Everybody's been looking down their noses at the Catholic Church, but looky here. And if you've been hearing at your church anti-Candace and anti-Tucker propaganda, you need to run to the door and never go back. That is not their job. That is not their job. Yeah, and so they're trying to get to the bottom of certain things, and they are trying to expose the truth, and I thank God for them. And what I would want and pray for is for more pastors to do the same. And I'm out here trying as hard as I can to get truth out to biblical, from the Bible, from the current events, all of these things, getting the truth out. And I know that's what you guys are trying to do too.
Who are these pastors indeed? Next, we'll be reviewing a clip from Iann Carroll's channel in which something very interesting happened while he was live. And also while he went to listen to one of Rob McCoy's sermons. Take a look.
Here's what happened on my live stream today when I tried to listen to Rob McCoy's missing podcast. Breaking moments ago, Rob McCoy removes YouTube video evidence while Baron Coleman was live analyzing it on his stream. Real Baron Pod had set up this McCoy sermon as the single most damning thing that exists today when it comes to Charlie Kirk and what happened to him. Moments later, the video is taken down. You have to see this. Is this some kind of admission?
Everything Rob McCoy says today is conditioned in many ways on Charlie Kirk not changing his mind from what Rob McCoy says it is. Now today, Rob McCoy's pastor suit is featuring a what looks like Navy garb, looks like a Navy getup, looks like he's on a sailor boat. Rob the Sailor Man. But let me get to this real quick because I think this is an absolutely critical moment in the.
Is it going to happen before he does it?
To neutralize Charlie Kirk. I just want to set this up because I have put so much research into the Calvary Chapel phenomenon and Rob McCoy's role in it, and it is wild. It is wild.
Other things, and you saw.
Have they pulled the video? No. You are kidding me. Do you see what I see?
What?
Ladies and gentlemen, while we're on air, they have marked the video private.
And so if you don't know, it's a bit of a process. You have to get into your YouTube studio. You have to go locate the video. You have to go into the menus and drop it down and hit the mark private. Takes a second. And if Rob is watching and he's like, oh, I remember what I said. Oh, okay. Fucking go. Yo, close this shit. Shut it down. Shut it down. Damn. Baron Coleman.
The guilty fleeth when no one pursueth.
Bring in the heat.
You are kidding me. The guilty fleeth when no one pursueth. This is, without a doubt, the largest admission that I've come across yet in the Charlie Kirk mystery. I cannot believe what we just watched live. And if they think this is going to make them look good, they're out of their mind. This is absolute insanity.
Hey, chat, you guys say that you found it? You guys say that you found it on Apple Podcasts? What podcast am I looking up on Apple Podcasts?
Hey, everybody. Good morning. I'm the visiting pastor.
Do you guys see what's happening in the chat? Do you guys see what's happening in the chat right now?
I used to joke that I became a minister because I hate.
Everybody look in the chat. Those are all first-time Twitch chatters getting chat spammed. Interesting. We start playing it on Apple Podcasts and then we start getting chat spammed by bots? Interesting. Let's look at let's pull up the chat so we can all see the chat. Interesting. We have more on-stream evidence of weird, shady shit. Let me refresh this page and see if my viewers have spiked or something. Nope, my viewers have not spiked. What were they saying? They were just spamming stuff. And I don't know if that stuff gets you banned or if they I don't know what it does. But that was interesting. Let's pull this back up. See what happens. Right? They may be trying to get my stream pulled for bots. They're trying to crash the server. That was some timing. I'm sure it's a coincidence.
For a pastor, this man seems to have quite a bit of power. One pattern you may have picked up on throughout all of this is these pastors and people of influence have high-ranking military backgrounds. I don't know about you all, but at one point I began asking myself, how can these people be so dastardly behind the scenes and on the surface seem like genuinely godly people? How are they so convincing? Like, I don't know a thing about Rob McCoy before all of this happened, and then Candace begins investigating him, and based on her coverage of him, you would think that listening to one of his sermons would be a cringe fest riddled with glaringly obvious red flags. But to my utter amazement, it's not so much. The man is convincing. Almost like he genuinely believes that he's this seasoned Christian warrior on a holy mission from God himself. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how the best deception works. And also where his high-ranking military background comes into play. The deceiver is also the deceived. You might remember earlier in the video, Candace mentioned that Rob's family was involved in psychological operations. And so I am proposing to you that to answer the question of how these pastors and people of influence of faith can be so double-minded, it's because I believe they literally are. Some of you may remember a while ago, I showed you a clip from an interview done with a man named Nathan Reynolds. He too comes from a wealthy family with high-ranking military ties. I will be showing you parts of an interview he conducted on the Confessionals podcast with Tony Merkel. I had also wanted to include the interview he did with Taylor Welch, but I found out literally a few days ago that Taylor Welch took the interview down. When asked why by a viewer of his channel, his reason was, God told me to. If you ask me, the timing of that seems highly suspicious, and I'm starting to question some things regarding Mr. Welch. But that's beside the point. Nathan's story is absolutely wild, and oddly enough, I will be using parts of this very same interview on my cryptids video that's in the works. Coming soon, guys. I will warn you that parts of Nathan's story are graphic, so viewer discretion is highly advised.
You come from a family that I've seen described online. I don't know if you describe it this way, but you come from a family that people have described it as a Illuminati family. Is that how you would describe it?
That's not how I would describe it in the same way. I'll be honest. It's I think it's just a popular catchphrase that a lot of people are borrowing into. No, I come from a family that they believe they are descendants of the old gods. That's the best way to say it. That they believe that they are carriers of a seed line that gives them the divine right to rule. And that is what gives them justification spiritually, emotionally, psychologically, scientifically to dominate the lesser species known as humans. Humans literally means a lesser species of man. And they do not believe they are a human in the same way. They believe they are something other than. And that's descendants of this hierarchical ruling species that is from the celestial realm that descended in the days of Jared and came down and procreated with the daughters of men, and that they still trace their seed line back to Gilgamesh, till Nimrod. And so this is what the dynastic families believe they have, is a superiority in their genetics on one side and the ability to commune with the divine. And so their children are progenitors of these, some might call them abreactions, mutations, these skills, psychic abilities, that kind of stuff, all variants of it. And so they raise up their children in this path with which involves a tremendous amount of shattering of the soul and the identity so that there's compartmentalization within, and it allows them the ability to train their child up in a way that makes them conducive towards the family. I call them the family. That's what I called them. You know, it's a better word for mafia than anything else. But no, we didn't call ourselves, like my family wouldn't ever call themselves Illuminists.
Yeah.
Right? They're Luciferian. That's for certain. They worship Hallel and Shahar, as he's really known, but different reasons than what people are ascribed to, you know.
Interesting. All right. So I want you to start from the beginning of what your childhood was like and just walk us through this. But before you do, you just said something that I got to ask you before I forget. Are what they believe, do you believe is true in the sense of them being able to trace back their lineage to the fallen?
Some of them, yes. I believe they absolutely can.
Do you think that's in your blood?
I believe it was, yeah. I believe it is.
Yeah?
I believe there's no way to physiologically necessarily... my blood's been augmented a lot over the years. I volunteered for a lot of stuff and said yes to everything that they could ever give me that would make me better than what I was. I was on a desperate quest for relief. And so I volunteered for all kinds of stuff, and I volunteered for stuff that was transhuman in its nature.
Really?
And it augmented me quickly, you know? And that was brutal, because then there's this, I lived a lot longer than I expected. Let me just put it that way. I did not think I would ever see 18. Never even comprehended the idea that I would ever know a family that wasn't this other thing, where the powers of control and access were given through the abuse of children. That's what I knew as normal. And I knew that people were corrupt and monsters and were willing to devour each other to rise to the top. I understood what wolves were when they ran the world. And so it was very hard for me to get to a place where I could believe that I could be redeemed, because I had witnessed enough of things in the families that make it seem like I am irredeemable forever.
From your earliest memories, it's just been kind of manipulated and jacked up. And what was that like for you growing up?
Well, my family set up a base of operations. They're from the East Coast. The Reynolds family on one side. My mother's family, just for clarity, I've never exposed a lot of the side of things that were going on with. Let me say it another way. The Reynolds family on my father's side, they're all from the East Coast out here, and they're a dynastic family. You know, like my great-grandfather, a man named Don Potter Reynolds, was the architect, the head of engineering for the president, as the president of the American Society of Civil Engineering back in the 80s. And he's the one who put the new torch in the Luciferian hand of the Statue of Liberty of Columbia. And so he's a master Mason Luciferian in that way. And he was so much of the shot caller for the family at that time, especially when I came into being. And but my dad left that thing and moved out to the Southwest and started a different empire. And so a lot of how it works in the families is you got two main approaches. If you've got unlimited access to wealth, power, like really, I'm not talking about money. I'm talking about power, like unlimited raw power, where a phone call, the phone book, is far more powerful than the bank account, because it's who you know can open doors to power anywhere else in the entire world. And that's where everything was. So you can leave with nothing, but then you can go build. And if you need the phone book, there's a price to be paid. And the price to be paid is generally one of your children. This is like the reality. It seems bizarre to some, but a child is generally a chosen child out of the family, is given over as an offering to the family. And they're the ones who's going to go through this left-hand path. They're going to experience the desecration of their soul, their identity, and they're going to become an agent for the family that is owned completely. And there's like a legal trustee that is given over to it. There's a board of directors that sits over it. Like, these are real legal confines for how the wealth is distributed out there. And so in order to build your empire, you got to be able to go prove yourself. And that's what he ended up doing out in the Southwest. And he moved to Arizona, an area called Flagstaff, Arizona. And where I was born, that is a place that's a high place, Mount Humphreys. It's a volcanic peaks that sit there. And the top of it is where the Hopi Indian and a lot of people had gathered forever to commune with the fallen. They believed that the sons of the sky would come down every season at the winter solstice, and they would abide from the winter solstice to the summer solstice there. And so this was a place where they would give their daughters over to them. This is Hopi mythology, like 101, you know, and they would make these Kachina dolls, which were an effigy of the what I would say is a watcher angel that would come, and the daughter would be given to him, and she would place that over her bed throughout her life, you know, and that's her familiar spirit, right? That's where I was born into. And the people that still practice that old religion, that's the way I refer to it, they still do this. And they still take their children up there to give them over to them on these high days. And so I was born into that, and I was born through that seed line and into that ritual magic world. And but my mother's side are extreme Catholics and Jesuits through and through. And so her father ran a different operation in Southern California, which was much more based on the child exploitation side of the equation. And he operated out of Lake Havasu City, Arizona. Lake Havasu, for those of you that are unfamiliar, sits in the absolute desert border of Arizona and California, and it has the Colorado River that's been dammed up, and they created an artificial lake there. And it was a secret military base back in World War II. It was called Site 6. And it was a stopover point crossing the desert for soldiers going there. And they would made it into a rest and recuperation area. And so it was a party city from its foundation. It had a lot of underground structures that were built into it as a refueling point. And in the 1960s, a guy named Robert P. McCulloch bought it. And he bought it, and he also purchased the London Bridge that crossed the River Thames. And he had it shipped over here stone by stone. And while they were doing that, they excavated 80 bodies that were entombed inside it in a practice that's called annulment, where you would sacrifice a person and bury them alive in the walls of the foundation. And so there's all these chambers in this facility of the London Bridge where they would do torture and all kinds of ritual stuff. But this is why the sing-song nursery rhyme, the London Bridge is falling down, falling down. That's a nursery rhyme to talk about how you have to give your children over to the government so you can hold up the London Bridge. And they would literally take their children. This is in the history book of the museum at Lake Havasu City. You can see these bodies of these children that were sacrificed inside the walls of that space. So he bought that as a charged object. He bought that as a portal mechanism. And they built in Lake Havasu City with another designer from the Disneyland. And they literally built a pleasure island. That's what it was facilitated for. And they designed it so that it would be a retirement community that would facilitate the exploitation of children. And that's exclusively what that city was founded and built for. And so the original founders of that operated out of the Knights of Columbus predominantly as a wing of the Jesuits. And that's the business down there. It's an industry to cover up child abuse. You got a bunch of old men running around with little boys, and everybody thinks they're grandchildren and nephews and nieces and all that rest. And so all along that area down there is where I would be taken from my earliest days and shattered, abused, traumatized, systemically so. But it's for behavioral modifications purposes. That's the end goal of the abuse, is to shatter your willingness to resist and to break your will. And once they own you and you have been woefully convinced you can never get out, you give in. And that's what happened. I became the person who I was died. And the person they wanted me to become was what was born out of that disgusting Phoenix ashes,
Wow.
But a lot of it is counter-espionage and espionage. You're setting people up, right? Or you're trying to extract something. Like there's this project we'll have to get into more. It's called the Jason Project, which is a secret scientific military group that's now more publicly known. It's a consulting group for the smartest people in the entire world, but they had children. And so they started this junior Jason program where they're like, yeah, we should all breed together, and have these really super high intelligent children. Well, then they could be great spies. And so that's where you get into espionage as a major tacit of this. That is, they get interlocked so heavily, and you start to figure out that the vast majority of the people behind the scenes are not just connected to these religious orders, they're connected to the government. And a lot of them are State Department employees. And this is how the United States military and government regulates and controls assets out of containment, people that are not doing what they're supposed to, that have information they shouldn't have, and they need to be eliminated, or you need to extract a piece of information from them. And so that's what really launched me into that realm, was right then in those mountains of the White Mountains is what they're called. But that was when I chose more of, I don't want anything. I want to not be in this cult side. It's not like that was respected, but it was acknowledged. And I got opportunities to do the side of it that I thought was high speed and low drag and looked way more freeing, which was the modern American soldier. I wanted that route. But you're designed to basically always be a spy, and that you're going to feed back the family what you want. And if you're going to be put in a position, we'll open the doors for you. And that's where all of that really was birthed out of, was there in the White Mountains. And then once that decision was made, my great grandfather was brought back to our house in Colorado. He was located there, and my father signed me over to him. He got parental rights. He got bedtime rights with me at night.
That's sick.
For a few years until he was too sick to do anything about it. And my dad got access to the trust fund. And that was when everything went from like surface level, poor, middle class American to like planes, new cars, plane, new car, houses, bed and breakfasts. Like my family became wealthy. And I got thrown from freak show level werewolf Psychoville down in Arizona into the big city of Colorado Springs, which was military gods. Like military, it is the capital of the New World Order. Denver, the Front Range of Colorado, is 100% the place where the capital has been built and the infrastructure was laid. And so I got put into the military side of the projects there when I was a young teen. And that's where NORAD Space Command and all of this underground facility from the United States Air Force Academy. And that's where I went into the military side of the equation. And that's where I stayed for quite a few years.
In conclusion, I totally believe that by now you guys are seeing some of the same patterns that I've been seeing throughout all of this. Be very, very mindful of who you're watching, especially when it comes to faith. What are their intentions? What message are they trying to push? Because if it's not completely about Jesus and bringing people to the cross, if it's about bloodlines, if it's about land masses, if it's about Anything else? Question those people. And the best thing that you could ever do, guys, is ask the Lord. Ask the Lord. And please don't be too prideful that you automatically believe that you know the difference between God's voice, your own voice, and the enemy's voice. The reason I'm telling you guys that is because I've made that mistake, even recently. And I've been a Christian for over 20 years. I'm not saying that to pat myself on the back. I'm saying it's very easy to be deceived. And there's no shame in it. However, there can be a lot of harm that comes from it. And at the end of the day, guys, God does not want us to be deceived. But ultimately, it's our choice if we choose to follow those who don't have pure intentions. I really hope that you saw something today that blessed you. As always, I love you. God bless you. And I will see you in the next video.